This is from Sinclair Lewis. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. I'm not going to give you a biography of Gene. He's been here several times and knows many of you. And if he hasn't, you'll know him after today. He's from Oklahoma originally. He's involved in every positive social action movement in Dallas, social justice movement in Dallas, including labor, particularly labor. When I first met him, he was teaching at Bishop College and moved to be a union activist. And I welcome him to our pulpit today.
Now you can't see me wiggle when well, that's all right. My name is Gene Lantz, as advertised. I am the president of the Dallas AFL-CIO. That's the Central Labor Council. It's an unpaid title. I'm the president of several things without any compensation or any real power. I'm also the president of the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans. And some of you may have heard me on KNON radio, which I've been doing for, some 20 some odd years, about 30 maybe. On Saturdays at 9 o'clock, it's a talk show. It's called The Workers' Beat, where we try to put things in perspective from the point of the working class. Because everything you read or hear or see was either written by the bosses or approved by them before it ever got to you. So I'm really pleased to have a radio show. I want to take a poll. Now, I understand, I just found out this morning, that there are certain names that cannot be mentioned. So I'm not going to mention anybody by name. It'll be he who shall not be named. Do you believe? I want you to raise your hand if you believe that he who shall not be named and his friend are trying to establish a dictatorship in America. Raise your hand. Look around. Almost everybody, it is everybody, believes that someone who shall not be named, is trying to start a dictatorship in America. So I don't have to try to convince you of that. We can start from there and start from the question, or what are we going to do about it? Now, I've been active in the progressive movement. I've been demonstrating and marching and reading books and participating in arguments and debate. I even ran for office a couple of times. And I've done everything I could think of in the political movement for over 50 years. So I used to start off by saying that I know stuff and you should listen to me. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think we have to start, and I think we have to agree together that we don't know nothing, because we're in a new situation. Since January 20th, when he who shall not be named came into power, there's a new situation in America, and we don't know what to do about it. So I can't stand up here and say, I know exactly what you're going to do. I'm going to make suggestions, and I'm going to draw on some historical precedents that I think might matter. I don't think that there's anything in American history that would explain and tell us what to do now. This is not like running against Herbert Hoover in 1932, It's not the same situation. It's different. It's entirely different for us. But there are precedents in other countries, and I think one of them was Germany in 1931. For some reason, the ruling class, the rich people of Germany, the big, at that time they mostly called them industrialists. I just call them the bosses, the employers. They shifted and supported Hitler. And last year in the United States, the rich people, the bosses, shifted and supported he who shall not be named. In both cases, it's not because they had great respect for these people as leaders or because they were overwhelmed with their charisma or something. Hitler was considered kind of a joke. He had a Charlie Chaplin mustache, and people had got worldwide, people were kind of used to laughing at somebody with that little mustache. And he did kind of resemble Charlie Chaplin, waving his arms around. So they didn't take him seriously. And last year, I don't think the bosses took their candidate seriously either. So why did they support them? So how did we get in this mess? I think they supported him because they had to. Some of you are familiar with the idea of the declining rate of profit. That profits may go up for a company because they're selling more units. General Motors' profits may go up because they're selling more cars. But as competition goes on, the unit profit tends to fall. So there's a declining rate of profits, meaning that the only way to keep your profits up is to sell more and more. And that's what brought us into the situation that we're in now, and it's what brought Germany and the rest of the world into the situation they were in the 1930s. The only way they could sell more was to take over each other's markets, was to eliminate somebody from competition. And they had a world war to do it. The same thing had happened as early as 1914, when the world powers, the great military powers of the world, found that they could not keep their profits up without taking somebody out of the competition. So they had a world war. And I think those situations are what brought them in 1914 to the situation they were in that made a world war. And again in 1939 or so, that the declining rate of profits and the need to sell more and more brought them again to world war, and I think that's where we are now. And I think the bosses know that. I was impressed when I saw in the Washington Post that they had an analysis of the 8 largest donors in the election. 7 of them donated, these are all big billionaires. The 7 of them donated to who shall not be named. And the other one, Bloomberg, donated to the Democrats. But he was the 8th on the list. The top 7 all donated to someone that they considered to be a clown and an unreliable person. And I think they did it because they had to. This is a lot different from what I said last time I was here. It's a lot different from what I've been saying to anybody. That got us into the situation that we're in, and it will lead to fascism and world war. Not necessarily because that's what they want to do, not necessarily because they're all in love with him and his buddy, but because they had to. So, my message is that we have to join. We have to unify. We have to get together. And even though we don't agree, because there's not much agreement over the broad spectrum when you consider it. There's a demonstration this afternoon on immigration. Not everybody feels the same way about immigration. The country's quite divided about it. And some people will turn out tonight, and some people won't. My argument is that whatever we may believe, as was pointed out just a while ago, it's not what you believe, it's what you do about it that matters at this point. And if you want to overcome the threat of fascism and World War III, then the message is that you have to start joining together. It is not easy. It is not easy. There are really good reasons why we don't all agree on abortion and gay rights, Middle East, all the things that are going on. But there is a historical precedent showing that unity really pays off. I found this precedent because somebody sent me a book about Julius Martov. How many know who Julius Martov was? Nobody. Okay. I didn't know much about him either. I knew who he was. Julius Martov was one of the leaders of the Russian Socialist Democratic Labor Party. Russian Socialist Democratic Labor Party. In 1903, they had a major split. Martov and his group believed that they could accomplish socialism just by having, socials and meetings and classes and educational points, and that eventually, in a gradual kind of way, they would eventually turn around and find themselves living in a socialist world. The other side was led by Lenin. By the way, Lenin wasn't his real name, and Martov wasn't his real name either. They were both kind of underground. I can say their names, I can't say that other name. So, they had this big split in 1903. Martov led what they called the minority because his group lost the vote in the Russian Socialist Democratic Labor Party. And Lenin led the majority. The minority in Russian is Menshevik, and majority in Russian is Bolshevik. So they continued to argue right on through the Russian Revolution and right on through the end of World War I. And then they were attacked. Russia was attacked by what they call the White Army. These were the Tsarists. They wanted to restore the Tsarism, wanted to go backwards. And they had the support of the Western powers. But Julius Martov and V.I. Lenin worked together, and they won that civil war. So I think that's a very good precedent. Here's two people who had been arguing for 15 years at least, 16 years at least. They were leaders of important factions, and they came together when they saw the threat of the White Army, of the Tsarist army. So I think that's a message for us. I'm looking for precedents. I'm looking for some kind of guidance because, as I said a while ago, nobody knows for sure what to do right now. I am, as I introduced myself, I said that I'm a union man and active in the unions. It's not because I think that they're better than other organizations or smarter or even more devoted to progressive causes. It's because they're working class. They're solid working class. They may not be revolutionaries. They may not live up to Lenin's ideal or even Martov's ideal. But they are working class. So I recommend doing anything you can with unions. Get as close to the union movement as you can. Now that guy in the blue shirt right there is the statewide leader, one of the statewide leaders of the Young Active Labor Leaders. Now, they are mostly only interested in people under 40. But you do not have to be a union member to join. They were created by the labor movement, by the organized labor, but they do not require union membership. This is kind of new. It's only been the last 10 years or so. Well, last 20 years. And the other group is my organization, the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans, which will take anybody. They took me, and I'm not even 85 yet. So they'll take anybody of any age, and you don't have to be a citizen, or you don't have to be a straight or gay or devoted to this or that. You just have to be interested in retiree rights. And everybody is, because they're either retirees or wannabes. They want to be retirees someday. So that pretty much covers everybody. That's what I'm urging, and that's what I encourage you to do. That's why I brought a petition that I put out there on the table with a pen. I'm after your name and your zip code, and your email and your zip code, because I'm just trying to pull people together around the union movement, around labor. I have some confidence that we are going to win. And I think it's because we have something that they didn't have in 1914. And they didn't have in 1939 either. It's these things. It's being able to communicate almost immediately across the whole nation. And be able to do that without having to ask he who shall not be named or anybody else. That we have our own way of communicating with each other that we never had before. So I do have some confidence that we're going to win this time, that we're going to make a transition to a better system, that we're not going to become fascists, we're not going to die in World War III. There's a couple of hopeful things that are developed that I found out about just this week. One of them is on June 6th. The veterans of America are going to march on Washington on June 6th. I think that's D-Day. And the union movement is supporting it. The Veterans Council of the AFL-CIO and other veterans are going to march on Washington on June 6th. We do not at this point have a local action, but I'm working on it. So we may end up with a local action as well. On June 14th, the day that someone has his birthday and is putting on a $45 million parade for himself, there will be demonstrations all over the United States, and they're calling it No King's Day. So I'm thinking that's a very hopeful thing, and I have every hope for that. Unity is our only path to victory, and even though I admitted at the beginning that I don't know what you should do, what I recommend you try is working as closely as you can with the organized labor.
Our closing words are from Mother Jones. My friend, it is in solidarity of labor we do not want to find fault with one another, but to solidify our forces and say to each other, we must be together. Our masters are joined together, and we must do the same thing.